Testing 1, 2, 3. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kind for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. How was your weekend? I trust that you had a good weekend. Well, we had a workful weekend. I spent a lot of time doing stuff with the party. Well, that was yesterday. But, we have a great show for you today. How's everybody doing? I'm going to salute you in a minute as soon as I get some of these items in the chat. You know how that goes. You're running late and it's like, oh, I got to get this in. I've got to get this in. I've got to get this in. And I think I have it in. Let's see. There you go. We have an interview with Arnie Arneson that's coming up in a minute as soon as I get all these bells and whistles connected. And then we'll get that all together, my peeps. Let's see, Jenna Flanagan as well. Let's get that connected. Get that connected together. Where's Arnie? Arnie, where are you? Arnie, there you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. I think I have them all connected now. Anyway, welcome aboard. John Carter says, howdy, Egberto, listening from Humboldt today. So you're not in the Big Bird today. We also have in the house Elizabeth Raven from Caracas, Venezuela. We have Neuronite Virgin Hotspot. Oddly, weekend went by quickly. It always goes by quickly. Cheryl says, never missed a Monday vibe here. No, you don't. Jane B. out of North Carolina. How you doing? Joe, I'm from Los Angeles, California. How you doing? She says, Arnie is a goddess. Yes, she is. I love me some Arnie. Amy Calais, so much mud. I know, but we are going to clean it up. Clean it up. Rene Paden from Evanston, Illinois. Hello, how you doing, beautiful? Mark KJ, ¿cómo estás, corazón? Stuart Cohen is in the house as well. Gene Daigle out of Alvin. Thank you for reminding me. Alvin, Texas. There you go. Suzanne Jensinger, thank you for being here. Kevin, John, I think I saluted John already. Cheryl said, Egberto, please see email. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Let's see what else we got here. Anyway, let's get started. I want to go ahead and start. Let me salute AVQ, who was numero uno again in the chat, followed immediately by El Senor. By the way, AVQ is in Brooklyn, New York. Patrick Magner, Houston, Texas. Always one. It's always like a bam bam. It's like you guys are really tailored that you come in right after the other. Lisa Blair out of Atlanta, Georgia, as well as La Preciosa Yvette Avery Herod out of Atlanta, Georgia. Eric Hayes out of Kingwood, Atascocita. Today we only have the honor of, we know they're listening, but not all the time they throw it in the chat. We only have one MAGA in the chat right now. Don't fear. More are coming. More are coming. More are coming. All right, let me go ahead and play Arnie, and then we'll take it on the other side. If Arnie comes through fine, I think it will. I just got through processing it.
Hi, this is Arnie Arneson, and this is the Friday edition of The Attitude with Arnie Arneson and producers Dave Scott and Stephanie Collins. You know the drill. Recording on Thursday morning. And I have an opening thought, and it's about Texas. And in part because Texas just had a really interesting primary that everybody has been following across the country. In part because of the race for the U.S. Senate, especially on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, we knew it would be a jump ball. All right. And so I knew I needed to reach out to Egberto Willis, who lives in Kingwood, Texas. He's a naturalized U.S. citizen from Panama. I saw this. You describe yourself as Black, Hispanic, and Caribbean.
Yes.
Heinz 57 is perfect. You're a political activist, author, political blogger. And how I know you is because you're the host of Politics Done Right on Pacifica Network's KPFT in Houston, Texas. And I've had the honor and privilege of actually, I think, coming on the air just before you for over a decade, Egberto, for over a decade. So I have learned a lot about Texas. And Texas is very important to me. One, because I really do think that the country is going to be decided by what happens in Texas, because Texas is in some ways almost a country in and of itself. It has been described as a very conservative Republican place, but that I think is somewhat dishonest because it's very much more multicultural than one would assume. But as I have learned, the governor of Texas has more money in his war chest than the entire Republican Party. So just to give you the landscape. But as I was looking at the Houston Chronicle the other day, I saw an editorial that hit me emotionally. And it hit me emotionally. It was entitled Democratic Primaries in Harris County Had One Clear Winner. And basically what this writer was saying was the one clear winner over and over again tended to be a female when it was a toss-up in a primary. All right. And as the first female to run for governor in state history, I am so aware of how difficult it has been to punch through. But I will tell you, Egberto, that even though I was the first female to run, I reminded everyone, don't vote for me because I have breasts. Vote for me because I meet the moment. Vote for me because I have the policy prescriptions that make sense. Vote for me because you think that I have the capacity to accomplish what I'm saying. And I was running at the time in the primary against the party chairman and the 5-term congressman. And I was a backbencher with no title. All right. And I beat them 2-1. And then the question was, but did I beat them because I was female? And I guess in a good way, I ended up losing the general, but I got more votes than any Democrat in history. So I was able to at least show people about my capacity. Now, the reason I got upset when I read this is, let me just read a couple of sentences from her piece in the Houston Chronicle. Davis Mendoza de Rusman already faced long odds. For one, he was a 28-year-old first-time Democratic candidate running for a seat that had ever heard of Justice of the Peace, Precinct 5. Place 2 isn't exactly a sexy position, but it's one of Davis's rightly understood to be the nexus of Harris County's eviction crisis. A social media savvy activist, Davis ran because he cares about helping people stay in their homes. When he talked about bringing reform to the mega court, where more than 50 evictions are filed each day, he spoke with the urgency of someone who had done his homework and knew change was possible. He rattled off steps about diversion programs that had worked in smaller courts and passionately committed to scaling them up. That visionary spirit is in large part why the Houston Chronicle editorial board endorsed him, even though his inexperience gave us pause. As a Mexican national, I can't vote, but I was invested in seeing Davis and his refreshing vision win. Alas, years of writing carefully researched, woefully ignored endorsements should have taught me better than to get too excited. Spoiler alert, Davis lost, and resoundingly so. Voters picked Lisa Jefferson, another first-time candidate, albeit with long-time clerk experience in JP courts, but little vision for reform. She won by a 24-point margin. I wanted to understand why. Was it his youth? Was it his unusual second name? Not quite. According to Mike Doyle, Harris County Democratic Party chair, the main factor was likely something simpler. His opponent was a woman. And if there was any group that came out ahead in this year's Democratic primary elections, especially in more obscure races, it was women, Doyle says. He should know. He just lost his own bid for re-election to a newcomer, Tracy Gibson, who will be the first Black woman to lead the Harris County Democratic Party. Doyle was careful to emphasize that this is only a generational trend, but it's also not a scientific analysis. The party hasn't done focus groups yet, and it obviously didn't hold up for the top of the ticket races, such as a statewide Senate race. But the phenomena is common in unusually high turnout elections like this one, especially with a lot of first-time primary voters. And she goes on and on and on. And I read this, and part of me grieved but I'm going to step back, Egberto, because I need to talk to you and hold on to what you say, because you understand this state and you understand Harris County much, much better than I do. But one of the problems I think I have with voting for anyone in Texas is how long your ballot is. That your ballot is a booklet. It's not a ballot, which means that the ability to be informed is almost negligible unless you're allowed to bring in a cheat sheet, which means you actually like study everything ahead of time and then you go in to vote. Well, you know that 90% of the people don't do a cheat sheet. All right. And so they're going to end up making a decision with a lot of ignorance because they really don't know the two candidates. And they're going to make a decision based on an emotion. And for a lot of Democrats, being female and being Black are things they haven't really seen on the political landscape for a long time. So therefore, if you're going to err on the part of which one you choose, you're going to end up choosing a female, a Black, a person of color, whatever it is, just because it's an easier choice because you don't really know what you're choosing anyway. So that's how I begin, because in part, I've been talking to Mike Doyle for a while because he's the head of the Harris County Dems. And I have seen someone who's a white, wealthy lawyer. Okay. And on paper, I would reject that. All right. But I've also seen someone so committed to the Harris County Dems and done so much to improve them that one would have thought that they would have said, we don't care what you look like. You've done a great job. You need to get reelected. But that didn't happen. So I begin with that concern, and I want you to help me understand why.
First of all, I just want to commend you for keeping your eye on Texas, because I think Texas is a bellwether.
Yes.
Secondly, I want to commend you again for keeping your eye on Texas, which is something you have been doing for quite some time. We carry you on KPFT, and you are there exposing it again because we're the bellwether. And thirdly, thank you for being a woman, because in what you just said showed exactly an issue with our body politic and why it is that we sure as hell need a lot of women in there. The men who got into office originally at some point were neophytes, and they got their abilities. A lot of women who got elected in Harris County are neophytes who are getting their chance. And let's put it even blunter, getting a chance that they had never had before, not because they weren't capable of being neophytes and growing as well, but just because of the inherent patriarchy that we have in the country, and not only in America, but throughout Latin America, etc. So I will, unlike the author of that piece, I will make no apologies for the person who is ignorant about two persons and say, well, you know what? I'm used to this. These are how things are now. Let me try this. And I'll tell you from around the world,
great.
I want women in leadership positions. We look at Angela Merkel. We look at Ardern in Australia. I mean, in New Zealand. We look at these leaders have sure outperformed because there's something inherent to how women are culturalized that we need them more than ever now in public office. Now, that said, Mike Doyle is a good friend of mine. He did a very good job running the party. I met his opponent at a speech that I gave at a local club, and she's young and she's also Black. She's a smart attorney. I looked at her in her eyes and I told her, you are so smart. All of this I told her. I said, but this is not your time. After I told her that, when I told her it wasn't her time, I didn't say it that way. I said, for what's occurring in Harris County, we do need the experience. We know people who know people with money to help us move the county forward. And that's the speech I gave her. And there's a sinking feeling that got into me immediately after I left her, because I saw a tad bit of letdown in her face, especially coming from me when I said that.
Yeah.
And I just left it at that because I honestly believe that. However, she went into this race against Mike Doyle, a friend of mine, and she won decisively, 67-33. I called Tracy up just before this. I didn't know you were going to talk about Tracy.
See, I channel you, Egberto. I channel you.
I had no idea. I just got a text that she said, I want to talk to all the precinct chairs. And I said, let me call Tracy. And let me tell you, I was calling her. I wanted to call and simply say, congratulations. But that's not how I started. I called and I said, I was wrong. That is how I started the call. I was wrong. I never believe. And I said, what you have done, I want to interview you and have you tell us how it is done. This is a young woman who galvanized people, who got more votes than Jasmine Crockett, than Hillary.
Wow.
Okay. And I'm saying, so I said,
this is very good to know.
I said, I need to know because people in Harris County need to know what you did. And she said, first, I am, people didn't give a chance. She said, I was everywhere. She said, what Mike did, Mike concentrated on precinct chairs, and many Democrats are in R+10 and R+15 districts. I went to R+10, R+15 Democratic districts. Precincts. I also went everywhere. I was in every church, no matter where. I was in every program. I was in every.
I'm over the moon.
I was everywhere. And she's right, because the club that I went and spoke at, I would not have expected to see her there. And that's where I met her. I heard her speak. And that's when I went and I spoke to her. And I felt bad saying this. I'm like, while I'm listening to her speak, I'm saying, this woman is so good. But then the defensive part inside of me said, but we are in trouble in Harris County and we need somebody to raise money.
All right. So let me stop you here.
Yes.
So my recommendation to Jasmine Crockett was always that her goal right after the loss was not just to call Tallarico, but say, I will be his biggest advocate. I will never work so hard because it is so much more than me or James Tallarico.
Yes.
It is so much more about the future of the country. And look at her incredibly strong constituency within the Black community and say, never have I done anything before. I'm going to beg you not only to show up, but to vote. This guy is really important to all of us. It is not a function of color. It is not a function of anything. It is about a function of really recognizing we need to protect our democracy. And I ran to protect democracy. And the fact that I lost doesn't mean I still don't believe that, And what I'm hearing from you is something very familiar for me, because when I ran for governor, I spoke at every Lioness Club, Lion Club, Rotary Club, you name it. There was no group. There was a group called the Good Old Boys in Woodsville, New Hampshire. The Good Old Boys. I spoke to them. Okay. Mm-hmm. And part of it was that I realized that people were going to not know me, but they needed to figure out who I was and judge me. And what you're telling me about this young woman is that she did exactly that.
Yes.
She put in the effort. But here's what I'm going to say to her. The next thing you do is call Mike Doyle and say, how do we do this together? Because what Mike has that she doesn't have is that institutional memory. And institutional memory is not something you throw overboard and think doesn't matter, because it does. And as you know, the 2026 election is like tomorrow. All right. And the most important thing is not only does she have to get elected and show people that she's smart, but part of being smart is understanding that you bring talented people who have a history and a knowledge close to you. Don't be offended by them. Learn from them. And so I hope when you have a conversation with her again, that the most important thing is that she calls Mike every other day, that they talk together all the time, because Mike has shown what he's done and done it well. She will do it even better if she can take her voice and his knowledge and then really, really make a difference, because Texas is too important and the entire country goes through Harris County. It is the blue dot in Texas that can change a nation. Change a nation. Am I right, Egberto?
You're absolutely. In fact, I think you are saying exactly how I expect her to behave. Okay. And listening to her. I again, like I said, this is since the election, this is the first time I've had an in-depth conversation with her. And she promises to give. I am going to send her a list of times, and she not promises she will give me an interview in the next few days, and we will talk about it. And like I said,
share this interview with her. Share this, because I will. I am the old female of politics. Okay, she's the young female of politics, so we have something in common.
Right.
I think that that's very important. But the reason I wanted to have this conversation on my national show is this is not just about Texas. Mm. This is about everyone that's running in the country. And one of the things that's going to sound crazy is, where I got this re-emphasized for me? As I watched the people in Minneapolis stand up to ICE, what they realized more important was that they found each other, that they locked arms together, that they stood together in community against ICE. People who had never protested. People who had never seen a whistle learned how to whistle. People who had never, these are people who they never thought it would be them. But all of a sudden they realized there was something more important than them. And that was they needed to defend their neighbor and that ICE was wrong. Well, the reason I wanted to tell this story on the air is that we're going to have primaries and people are going to lose. And what we're going to have to figure out is how do we find the common ground beyond that loss in order to win November? And that's really, really important because I know, for example, in my race for governor, one of the people I beat said, let me hold your hand and play and work with you. I will go anywhere for you. The other one worked overtime to make sure I would lose. That was a Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
I want this story to be told because we can't afford that.
If I can spend 1 minute because you said you had a very important message for Jasmine Crockett. I think Jasmine Crockett pretty much came out and said she's going to support Tallarico, but Jasmine Crockett need a few weeks to heal, because one of the biggest disappointments I had in is the way the progressive base did use race in and went with two progressives winning in this election. And I think she has been magnanimous. But again, I think, and I don't think it's for her to do. I think it's for people like you and me to do, to point out some of the things that were, as a last resort. And this is what a lot of Black women feel. As a last resort, when two progressives or two Democrats are in a race, the last resort when they feel that they can win is to go ahead and work on people's innate prejudice.
Prejudice. I get it. I get it. But let me ask a question.
Yes.
So I love both of them.
Mm-hmm.
They had my head and my heart simultaneously. It wasn't that one had my head and the other one had
No,
my
I
heart.
got you.
They had both. Okay. So here's what I'm going to ask you. As someone who's covered politics for a long time.
Right.
Let's not just look at Crockett's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
She's funny. She's articulate. She's biting. She gets people excited. All those things are true. But in the end, when you look at an effective campaign, it can't just be that you are exciting, but you have really created the network of support beneath you, the infrastructure of running in order to win. And I am Jasmine Crockett. I was always outspoken. I was the most entertaining. Everybody wanted me because I was great for their TV and radio shows. But you know what I also was? I had one of the best infrastructures ever seen in state history. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I raised my money in tiny little bits, not because any PAC gave me money or any rich people gave me money. I expected I would walk into a mobile home park and someone would say, I love you, Arnie. I want you to win. I said, then contribute to my campaign. And she'd look at her mobile home and say, Arnie, I have no money. And I pointed to the roll of pennies on her table. I said, yes, you do. That roll of pennies is near and dear to my heart. Share that with me. And so I'm going to ask you, as you look at the two of them, I understand the innate prejudice. It's easier to go with the white guy who think he is progressive than the Black woman that is. But don't just look at that. Look at the gestalt. When you look at the gestalt, Egberto, am I wrong here? But I got the impression from what I did in research that not only were they great candidates, incredibly well spoken, they knew how to be bold. And one was bold and sort of edgy, and the other one was sort of bold and mild. If that's possible. But look at their campaigns. Who had the better infrastructure?
Oh, no, there's no doubt. Look, Tallarico had a much better infrastructure. And to put it bluntly, I actually called up her campaign a couple of times. I couldn't reach anybody of substance till the end when I got sort of mad. And finally, a purported campaign director called me and said, are we okay? Because, and I think the only reason they called me is because they didn't know what I was going to say on air. Okay. Yeah. That's the only reason I got a call. But no, there were a lot of problems there, but there are a lot of candidates that overcome those. Voters look. I
hear you.
Look, I mean, yeah. So I know we got to go on this one.
I know, but this is important for people to hear because you and I have done too much politics. Okay, we know all the ins and outs of what's going on. We understand also the emotional and psychological reasons that people. I mean, Egberto, when I ran for Congress, the Republican that ran against me told everyone I was a gay communist Jew from New York.
Oh my God, I didn't know that about
I know
you.
it, but guess what? The only thing that was true is I'm a New Yorker. Okay. I was on my way to becoming a Methodist minister. Okay. Communist, hell no. All right. Gay, I had a bad marriage. Okay. I wasn't gay. But understand what he did. He made sure that every box that you could check
Right.
that would create fear and lack of trust was how he framed me, Egberto. All right. So I get that framing stuff, but that's one of the reasons why infrastructure is so important, because you know how they will marginalize you, how they will distort you, and what you get to do with really strong infrastructure and being able to explain to people exactly who you are and why you're running helps you in that general election. But I know this sounds crazy, everyone, but we're at a moment where elections matter so much and we need to get really sophisticated. It's not just about showing up. It's about knowing what you're voting for.
Arnie, let me just say this, and I give you this kudos all of the times. That's why somebody like you has to be doing this. Period. All right? That's why somebody like you has to be doing it.
I'm in tears and I'm afraid. And one of the things I keep saying to people, I have thousands that follow me on Facebook, and I keep saying, why do you do what you do, Arnie? And I say, because I want to create the civic muscle that we are going to need, not just for the 2026 election, Egberto.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be facing such political challenges going forward. And the politics, I don't mean Donald Trump. I mean the climate crisis. I mean the grotesque inequality with the billionaires. I mean AI. I mean all these things. All these things are about policy and politics. You know that, and I know that. And it's no longer going to be the excuse of, oh, well, I forgot to vote, or I just voted for whatever showed up. It means that we're going to have to do what democracy requires, Egberto, which means we need to learn more about our world and who we are choosing.
Exactly. I can't argue about that.
Oh, my God. Well, next time you join me, I got to ask one question before I leave. So think about this. Why has Trump not yet picked his candidate of choice between Paxton and Cornyn? Everybody expected that last week, 48 hours after. Wait a minute. It's been a while since the Texas primary. And guess what? He hasn't made his choice. So I just want you to think about that, because I want to know what the answer is, because I think what Cornyn is doing is turning himself into a pretzel to look more and more like what Donald Trump would want than anyone could possibly imagine, because it feels like if there was a way for him to kiss his butt, he's doing it.
Yes.
I love you, Egbert.
Love you too, young lady.
All right. Take care, everyone. This, everyone, is the Friday edition of The Attitude. We've been talking with Egberto Willies. He is the host of Politics Done Right on Pacifica Network's KPFT in Houston, Texas. We will be right back. This is the Friday edition.
Yep, I hope you enjoyed that. And then I did that one first. Then I did one with my weekly stuff with WBAI, which is the station in New York. We have a panel that we do every Monday at 8 o'clock. Well, 7. What is it? No, it's 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. Let me go ahead and play that, and then we can go into our chats. And I think there are a couple of shorts that Brother Radnin has there that I want to put out as well. So check it out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
The president has continued to express his plan to intervene in Cuba despite the most recent New York Times reporting that the U.S. and Israel's war against Iran, now in its third week, has drawn in much of the Middle East and killed over 2,000 people, mostly in Iran and Lebanon. Here to help break down where all of this is heading is our political panel, Egberto Willies, host of KPFT's Politics Done Right, Dave Leventhal, Washington, D.C. correspondent and senior editor at Notice, and one of the hosts of WBAI's Out FM, We Decide regular and political analyst Pauline Park is joining us this week, filling in for regular panelist Laura Jadid, who is traveling this week. Safe travels to Laura, and this morning, hello to the panel.
Good morning.
Thank you so kindly for having us today.
Absolutely. All right. So listen, we're obviously going to get into the latest with the war in Iran, but Egberto, I want to start with you with this subject of Cuba. President Trump actually sounded less aggressive toward the island nation in the clip that we just heard than he frequently has as of late. So do you think the president Do you think he has a plan? What do you think that plan is? And more importantly, and I understand this is all like tea leaf reading, but what is driving this?
Well, first of all, I think the one of the big problems is that he thought he was somewhat successful in Venezuela. The reality of Venezuela was that, in effect, all he did was got the head and kept the government there. So nothing was really accomplished in Venezuela other than stealing a bit of their oil. But as far as Cuba is concerned, we have to realize that America has been trying this with Cuba for a long time. And the thing that he thinks he wants a success to say, I was the liberator of Cuba, but the one driving him is Marco Rubio, the Cuban senator from Florida. They have no chance whatsoever of really getting Cuba legitimately because the people in Cuba, even as the folks in Miami seem to want the US to go in, that is not what the people of Cuba want. The people of Cuba just want the ability to have their own economic successes. We are the reasons Cuba is in the state that it is with respect to Donald Trump saying, I'm going to go take it, or what he was saying and sounding softer a bit now. The only reason he's sounding softer, Jenna, is because he knows he's failing in Iran, and he cannot afford another failure. So he may be a bit cautious in Cuba, even as Marco Rubio may just want him to blow it wide open.
But where are the Democrats in all of this? So, just so that I'm hearing this correctly, is this a case of elections have consequences and the Democrats have no power? Or is this the case of a party that is still trying to find its footing and determine how its either its messaging or its plan of, for lack of a better description, attack against this administration? Moving on, um, turning to the war in Iran, we saw Egberto, we saw the number of casualties more than double last week as 6 National Guard members were killed when a refueling aircraft crashed in Iraq. So do you believe American casualties have a better chance of changing U.S. public opinion on the war in a way that the reported 2,000 mostly civilian casualties have not so far? Like, does this up the game when it comes to Americans' feelings about this, resistance, disapproval?
I'm going to go back to something that I've said before, and that is the only lives that matter in our world here in the United States is the lives of Americans. So the reality is, it doesn't matter how many foreigners die. It doesn't matter how many Iranians die, how many Palestinians die. None of that matters. It's when Americans start to die or when American capital is affected. Those are the only things that will stop this war. American capital in danger or American lives, but it has to be the right kind of American lives that are in danger. But if Jenna, if I can go back to something you said before, which is so very
Mm-hmm.
important, you mentioned earlier about where are the Democrats? Are they in the weeds? The Democrats are in the weeds purposefully. Let me give a little example. The thing about it is, what is Trump doing that neoliberal Democrats don't do themselves? Except for social programs like Medicare, etc. Everything that Trump is doing is just done under the color of neoliberal Republicans. And that is the reason why they are so quiet. There are people that are very loud right now, but we don't hear them. There are many progressives that are out there saying the word, speaking, trying to get the news media to pay attention to what's really happening in this country, both on its war stance, on its economic issues, etc. But they're silenced because the purveyors of our news are not carrying them. So it isn't that the Democratic Party is quiet. It is that the neoliberal portion of the Democratic Party is quiet because Trump is not doing all that much different than what they have done, but except under social issues. In other words, the wars, the attack on Central American countries, etc. It has been the same continuous United States policy throughout, and we don't read, but it's reported differently depending on who does it. And I think when we get honest, the independent media gets honest about all of that, then we can actually make that difference.
Well, perhaps that's a conversation we can have in the future, because what you're saying reminds me of an article about the Republican Party back during the Tea Party days, which was the war in the Republican Party is just getting started. I do wonder if the two quote unquote factions of the Democratic Party are really just getting started,
You
getting
nailed it.
wound up against each
You
other.
nailed it.
Speaking of those Democrat on Democrat primaries, we just saw one in Texas. Egberto, I would love to have time to unpack what took place between James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett, but we don't have time. What I do have time to ask you before we have to wrap this segment is, how do you see all of this impacting the day-to-day life of Americans? Because we were promised lower grocery prices and cost of living, and everything seems to be trending in the opposite direction.
Well, the prices are going to be going up on gasoline, food, and everything else. And my fear is that right now Democrats are not laying the path down to point all of that directly at the hands of Donald Trump and his posse. And in that, Donald Trump and those guys are so very good at marketing that they may be able to find a way to cauterize in other people's minds that after all, it wasn't the war. After all, it wasn't our policies. I think it is time now that Democrats better get their act together and start laying the pathway to how we're getting to where we're going to be, which is not a good place.
All right. Well, we are going to have to leave it there, but I would love to thank our panel. My guests, you just heard from Egberto Willies, host of KPFT's Politics Done Right, Dave Leventhal, Washington, D.C. correspondent and senior editor at Notice, and one of the hosts of WBAI's Out FM, We Decide regular, and political analyst Pauline Park.
Now, there's the last comment that I made. I wanted to go a little bit longer, but we were out of time. I got a tape a clip yesterday off of one of the news programs that made me super happy. Some people would say, "Oh, why did that make you so happy?" Let me just I'm gonna clean it up for tomorrow and put it out tomorrow when I do the show. But what got me real happy was when I don't remember which politician it was. I got it on taped already. The not Dana Bass. Who was it? I think it was the one from ABC. Said, uh, with all the problems that these people are having stacked up at the airport, why don't the Democrats stop holding, in effect, holding it hostage? And immediately the guy said, "No, what you just stated isn't true. We want the people at the airport to get paid. We want them to go to work. In fact, we have the bills out. All the Republicans have to do is, we can't agree on ICE, pass the other bills so that the people get paid. It's not us. The reporter framed it as Democrats are holding up the salaries of the TSA, and he reversed it on her and he says, "No, we put a bill on the floor where we pay TSA, we pay the Coast Guard. It's the Republicans who are not passing this bill that would pay these people." And I'm like, earlier in the thing, when I told Jenna, my concern is that enough of Democrats will not lay the groundwork to show who's really at fault. Anyway, folks, on April 17th, Cheryl has it in the chat again. On April 17th, sign up for Zoom Coffee with Egberto. April 17th, and the tiny link is in her chat. I am going to add it to the other general chat so that anyone who wants to up now for it. And of course, she'll remind you when the date is approaching. It is at tinyurl.com/coffee with Egberto. Tinyurl.com/coffee with Egberto. And I just put it into the chat. Go ahead and sign up. The last time we had quite a few people and we enjoyed it. We had fun. We lightened up and it was all nice and good. So check it out, guys. I have some, but there's a video that I saw in the list of videos that Brother Rudnin sent me that tickled my fancy. I think, and I hope I think it is the one that I think it is. It is Goldman Sachs wants, what is it? Goldman Sachs wants progressive taxation. I think that is the one that I want to play para ver. That looks like it. Well, I hope it is. Let's go ahead and play that. Then we'll take it en el otro lado, mis amiguitos.
Before we watch this clip, it is very important that you know right off the bat that the person speaking is Lloyd Blankfein, the senior chair of Goldman Sachs. Now watch.
I think the answer to solve the problem has to be a more progressive tax system than we have today, and to give more people for free the necessities of life, like childcare, health care, other things that rich people can afford, that poor people have to scrimp to give those things, have the higher minimum, and to pay for it with a progressive system.
Again, that was the senior chair of Goldman Sachs, and even he is acknowledging that wealth inequality is not sustainable, that wealth inequality will be the downfall of our civilization if we don't stop its trajectory. Even he is acknowledging that it is very important that we put policies in place that make sure that every human has access to things like housing and food and healthcare, and stop allowing whether or not you get those basic necessities be determined largely by what amount of wealth you were or weren't born into. And you might be thinking to yourself, why the f would the senior chair of Goldman Sachs be out here calling for a more progressive tax system? Why would he be out here talking about the dangers of wealth inequality? Well, that's because he and any other non-stupid rich person understands that when the rich take food out of the poor's mouths, eventually the poor will eat the rich. So the rich get to choose, either invite us to the table or end up on the menu. Before
I love that. When as she was talking, I was like, okay, but we need to make it clear that he is not doing that because he's some nice guy. That's not the reason why he's doing that. The reason he's doing that is that he's smart. He is a smart parasite. In other words, he knows he cannot kill the host. The parasite can't kill the host. Otherwise, the parasite dies as well. It is that simple. Thank you for that one, Radin. That was a good one. There's another one that you had there that I want. 4 Democrats need prime minister. I'm not going to touch that one right now. I don't know what the Trump doesn't think is all about. It kind of tickles my fancy. But let's go ahead and do the one on Trump versus generals, because there's an issue there that I hope this is what it's all about. Let's go ahead and do that one, and then we'll take it from there.
But because his own people told him. He did it anyway because he thought he was smarter. The Wall Street Journal just broke the news this morning that Donald Trump was told by his own military leaders that Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz if attacked. And he considered it before deciding that he thought that Iran would chicken out first. He's supposed to be the deal maker in chief, but not only was he not smart enough to make the deal that could have avoided this whole war, but when he then tried to beat them into submission, they called his bluff. So he doubled down by attacking the island that 90% of Iran's refineries are on, hoping the same approach would work the second time even after it failed the first. But in the process, Donald Trump has painted himself into a corner because he obviously can't destroy Iran's refineries, because doing so would eliminate their last reason to negotiate. You can't kill the hostage. If Iran can't refine and export oil, then the strait has no remaining value to them. And at that point, they could go all in on mines and drones and fight indefinitely in a war of attrition. And based on our track record with Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq, I'd say they have a pretty good chance. And if Trump is dumb enough to bomb their refineries anyway, oil would be expected to go over $200 a barrel, which would translate to at least $5 to $6 a gallon at the pump indefinitely, while virtually guaranteeing the strait would be an active war zone for at least 5 to 10 years, likely spiking energy prices enough to cause a global recession while erasing the political futures of every Republican holding office. Which means right now Donald Trump really only has 2 options. If he wants any chance at saving his agenda, he needs to chicken out and make a deal, or compromise our national security by using the entire U.S. Navy to escort oil tankers through the 100-mile-long Strait of Hormuz. So that way Americans can use American lives and American tax dollars to protect oil companies from the consequences of Donald Trump's energy policies and war of choice. Also, that at least economically, the best case scenario would be to get gas prices down to the level where they were if Donald Trump had just done nothing at all. God damn it, you
again, I am going to have to break down and call this thing in, because this stuff just goes bananas sometimes. So I'm on an alternative mic now. I know that the sound quality is different, but I don't have the choice to do other than what I'm doing right now. Anyway, yeah. You know what is interesting? I don't know if you guys saw in the news. You know, Donald Trump went into this war all by his lonesome. All by his lonesome. And now that it's all gone south on him, what is he asking? Hey, France. Hey, UK. Hey, China. Japan. All of you. Could you send some ships down here so that we can get the oil to pass through the Strait of Hormuz? And it's no. No. You thought you were going to do this alone. First of all, it's not something that you should have done in the first place. This is a war of choice. Why should we go kill Iranians for you? Because you screwed up. What you do is you just stop. Go home. Turn the armada around. Go home. Lick your wounds. You lost. You blew up a whole lot of crap. You lost. I mean, that is what happens when you have boys doing the work of men. You lost. You know, it blows the mind. I have one last video. Do I have time? Well, I can play the short one. The short one is about, let me go ahead and play it. It's about, let's see. Let's go ahead and do that. I swear, our gullibility and our ignorance in the aggregate will be the demise of this country if we don't tackle it right away. And I don't see it coming from mainstream media. I don't see it coming from the media that is funded by our corporatocracy, corporate ads, etc. I don't see it. And the reason I don't is there's no incentive structure for these guys to do all but what either those that are commanded by the Trump administration or those commanded by the corporatocracy. And ultimately, they're all commanded by the corporatocracy. All in all, if you take a look at Iran, the war in Iran, if you see what Americans are seeing here from CNN, Fox News, MS Now, and all the others, one will not understand the gravity of what is occurring right now. What I want all of you to do is spend a day. There are 5 days in a week. Spend a day listening to MS Now. Spend a day listening to CNN, Fox News, CBS, ABC, and then go ahead and spend the day with Al Jazeera. And the reason I say a day, I want you to see the depth of coverage. I want you to see the loop that they're on. In other words, a news loop and all the subjects that are covered. And I want you to see how our news is seen from the entire world's point of view and what is reported from the entire world's point of view. Because if you are going to be a country that's going to be expansive, a country that is going to have its tentacles all around the world, and you have the people who vote for you, it is essential that you have the pulse of the rest of the world, not just what's insular to the United States. But you see, we have a country that is that has its footprint on every continent, in every country, but the people in America know so little about the lifestyles, about the cultures, about all these things around the rest of the world. And as such, we have allowed our government and our corporations to run a blaze around the world. without us really knowing the impact that it has. And when you see the wars that we get into, the attacks that we make around the world, because we know so little, we put ourselves in dire straits. So again, one more time, please spend a day listening to all the different versions of news. And you'll see why what we do here with independent media, given the narrative as it should be, not just a narrative as given to us, as fed to us either by the mainstream media or the administration, to further ensure that we are enlightened in a manner that as we vote for these people that talk so much, many of them crap, as we vote for them, we know we're voting in the interests of America and not in the interest of select corporations, select people, select politicians, and ultimately harm us all.
All of our country's problems, from
Absolutely
polarization
so, folks.
to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.
All right. It seems like my microphone started working again. I think you guys can hear me. I don't know why sometimes it goes haywire. I think it must be going bad. I don't know why. I don't know why. Anyway, but I have it on now and the other one off. Para ver que vamos, tenemos tres minutos. So we have 3 minutes left. Anybody wants to give us a call in, telephone number 281-823-7747. 281-823-7747. Me pueden llamar. You can give me a call and say hello or whatever you want. But folks, I hope you enjoyed the program today. Please remember to become a subscriber. Just go to politicsandright.com/newsletter. We need paid subscribers. So if you have the wherewithal to do so, if you like the work that we do, if you understand that what we're doing is we're trying to make sure to get the progressive message out there so that people will begin voting in their interests, in their own interests, and make sure that because it's not enough that we individually go and vote in our own interest. We need the collective to go vote in our own interest because we depend on the collective to win. The collective being us all, or the majority of us. And until we get there, we will continue to have charlatanes like Donald Trump, who's able to confuse and malign people. We're here to clean up that fog. As Cheryl says, vote your values. We need to help our neighbors do the same. Lynette says, someone on Substack made me laugh about DJT. I think they were quoting Cohen O'Brien last night, or something like, let's put on all the building. He has a small member and see if DJ was his name. You are bad, Lynette. You are bad. Okay, let's see what else we got here. What else have we got here? What else have we got? Welcome aboard, Pamela Daniels. ¿Quién más tengo aquí? Que está hablando. Joe says, off topic, request for empathy. I have to drive to Solvang, California and visit my Danish relatives. They are Viking mean. Oh, so you're a Viking, beautiful. I didn't know you were a Viking. I don't even remember what Viking is in Spanish. I wanted to say it in Spanish, but I can't remember what it is. All right, let's see what else have we got here. I got a minute left, so let me see if I can say something from your minute. M. Hope say that's a communication between M. Hope and somebody else. Anyway, I think we're pretty much done for today. Look, guys, please remember to share the program when we get it out on the podcast form. Just go ahead and share, 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 share. That is the way we make sure that we continue to inform in all the different on all the different platforms that we provide here. I want to thank you all. Hey, Bruce, I see that you were in here as well. How you doing, Bruce? Nice to have you here, my brother. How are you feeling? Let me know when you're up to going and get a coffee. Drop me a text or something. Cheryl says people are getting spicy. Yeah, I know, right? They're getting real spicy, man. A good spicy, that is. Let's see. Patrick says Al Jazeera has hour-long programs that are very, very good, similar to Frontline. Yeah, they are, and well researched. I like to fact check when I'm looking at these programs and I hear statements. I always go fact check them. Well, most of the times that is, I go ahead and fact check that what they're doing is telling us things as they really are. Anyway, got to get out of here. I want to thank all of you for being here. Please remember to go to politicsandright.com/newsletter, politicsandright.com/newsletter to subscribe to our newsletter. That's the way we subsidize all our programming platforms, etc. If you have the wherewithal, please consider becoming a paid subscriber instead of a free subscriber. And remember, you can write and talk to me directly, info@politicsandright.com, info@politicsandright.com. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics.